Seele dreams about Kevin fighting an imaginary construct. She wakes up in an unfamiliar place and doesn't remember how she got there. She tries to reach out to Dark Seele but cannot communicate with her, although she can still feel her presence. The girl meets Sora, who tells her that they are on the moon in a place called New Atra, and that two other Valkyries woke up before her and went to explore the area. Seele follows a trail of defeated monsters and meets up with Durandal and Li Sushang. Durandal thinks that the dream Seele had was actually a message that was mistakenly transferred to her subconscious when she was teleported on the moon, and that all the events happening here are probably related to Project Stigma. The Valkyries run into Jackal, who tells them that Project Stigma is already happening and that Kevin doesn't need her or World Serpent anymore. They learn that Hare, who is both a human and a Stigma, is behind the project this time. After Jackal leaves, they investigate the bridge that leads to the mountain area that has its path blocked because of some strange space around it. Durandal points out some weird readings around Seele with her genius device and asks her to come closer. Because the space on the moon was overstabilized, Durandal was unable to access Sumeru. But since the area near the bridge was an unstable space, and because of the strange waves that Seele can produce due to her constitution that is adapted to the Sea of Quanta, she was able to teleport them inside the bubble universe. Schrödinger tells them that the AE and Schicksal bases on Earth are still operational and that they may be able to use the smaller bubble universes around the moon to connect to the Sea of Quanta and find their way back home. While exploring the Sea of Quanta, Seele witnesses the memories left behind by Dr. May and Prometheus, which talk about the ruins on the moon being more than 200,000 years old. Durandal realizes that Seele can understand the memory projections, so they decide to send Sushang ahead to explore the bubble universes, while having Seele follow her from behind and analyze the information. We see more memories of Vilvi, Dr. May and Prometheus, and even learn that Pardo sacrificed herself to allow Prometheus to hack the Authority of Finality. Seele is approached by an individual calling herself Passing Female Lead A, who tells her that because these bubble universes exist on the moon, they won't be able to return to Earth through them, but they might find some familiar people inside them. Kiana wakes up in the Sea of Quanta. After witnessing some strange apparitions, she discovers that her Herrscher powers are no longer working. She meets up with Bronya, and as they talk, an unknown wheel keeps giving them subliminal suggestions. They notice that the quantum shadows have gathered around a crack in the space, most likely engaging in combat with someone on the other side. Bronya suggests that she and Kiana split up, and while she will distract the quantum shadows, Kiana should try to find a way to get to the other side and get some help. Kiana manages to break through and falls into another part of the Sea of Quanta. Her fall is interrupted by May, who turns out to be the one being attacked by the quantum shadows on the other side. After the long-awaited reunion, May tells Kiana and Bronya about her and Project Stigma and points out that she also felt that some kind of power was guiding her through the Sea of Quanta. After a while, they finally find a portal that can get them out. Meanwhile, we see Senti emerging from the Sea of Quanta into a bubble universe of the moon from 50,000 years ago. Everything is frozen in place, and Senti senses a strong emotion of hope left behind by the people of the bubble universe that came from their belief in Dr. May. At first, Senti does not recognize her and is mad at Dr. May because she gave up and Senti felt that she betrayed the people's trust. After that, we see the girls listening to Senti while she exaggerates her impressive achievements. While in the Sea of Quanta, May and Senti were guided by beacons planted by Dr. May, while Bronya and Kiana were guided by ideas planted in their heads by the Herrscher of Sentience. Dr. May tells them that she is not the real Dr. May and that this is just a bubble universe that was peeled off by the Herrscher of Finality 50,000 years ago, and that she agreed to let World Serpent use it as an exile place for the Herrschers. Dr. May offers a deal in which she will help the girls return to the real world in exchange for them helping to save the bubble universe. She brings Kiana and Senti to see the remains of the Authority of Finality and tells them that Project Stigma is reliant on the Authority of Finality. She shows them a bridge that connects to an entire separate bubble universe where Prometheus is trapped. Because the Seele under her powers is psychological, Dr. May riles up Senti to beat up Kiana and weaken the Seele inside her mind. After their fight, Kiana is able to use the Edge of Taishuan to materialize the bridge and connect the two bubble universes. Kiana, May and Bronya walk over to the other bubble universe to search for Prometheus. Prometheus tells them that they found a dying husk mysticism and that they could use its link to the imaginary as an anchor point to link the bubble universe to the imaginary tree and save it. While approaching the location of the husk, Durandal connects to Kiana's Herrscher core through Sumeru. Back on the moon, Fu Hua finds Kevin as he gazes upon the remains of the Herrscher of Finality. He tells Fu Hua that he comes here on this day every year because of a promise he made with Dr. May. Both Durandal and Dr. Compass, Dr. Schrödinger, are concerned about Dr. May's plan, saying that her plan might destroy the bubble universe instead of saving it. They confront Dr. May about it, and she admits that she lied to them. The bubble universe will fuse with the real world and disappear anyways, but Project Stigma might be already done by that time. Following her plan, will speed up the process and let them leave in time to stop it, but will also cause the demise of the bubble universe. For this to work, Dr. May wants May to enter Kiana's mind and completely remove the restraints on Kiana's Herrscher powers by force. Inside Kiana's mind space, May and her fully reconcile after the events that happened in Nagazora, after which they are brought face to face with the restraints on Kiana's powers. These are manifested in the form of Husk Nihilus, but the two Herrschers defeat it quickly and Kiana regains her powers while May regains half. They return and try to pursue Dr. May to find a better solution, but she doesn't want to change her mind and urges them to respect her decision. She then tells May that as Herrschers of Human, who inherited Elysia's will, it's their duty to stop Project Stigma and find a better solution for humanity. After Kiana, May and Bronya defeat Husk mysticism, they return back to reality where they reunite with Durandal, Li Sushang and Seele. As they discuss about Kevin, Senti suddenly senses that Fu Hua is fighting him and she disappears to go help her. Confused, the rest of the group soon realizes what's happening. As the bubble universe is about to disappear, Dr. May tells Prometheus about the promise she made with Kevin to spend the anniversary of their meeting at that spot, and that's why she wanted the merging of the bubble universe with reality to happen on this day. She believes that humanity's will to never change and push past every obstacle will be its salvation, unlike Prometheus, who thinks that the stubborn and irrational thinking will be its downfall. In the end, the bubble universe disappears, but Prometheus is saved by a mysterious person that introduces herself as Mistelin Shariak by engraving its data into a stigma. The girls descend into the crater of finality, while Seele remains behind to keep an eye on the people of New Atra. Meanwhile, Fu Hua fought Kevin in her active Honkai reaction form, but couldn't last more than 3 minutes. Kevin tells Fu Hua that he and Su kept some things hidden from her. The history of human civilization is a 50,000 years old cycle that always gets reset by the Herrscher of Finality, who has authority over time. The only difference between the two eras being that the current era had external factors from the previous one influencing it. Despite all of that, Fu Hua doesn't give up and wants to prove Kevin that the ember of humanity is still lit and it didn't lose its will to fight. While descending into the crater, Kiana and the rest find themselves trapped into a peculiar space that grows indefinitely. Durandal thinks that the reason behind it is the opposing relationship between Herrschers and Stigmata awakened. That being the case, they decide to separate and see what happens. Durandal and Li Sushang notice that they cannot contact the three Herschers anymore, and Dr. Nanodesu explains that the difference between Herschers and Stigmata Awakened is that the former push things to the extreme, causing destruction, while the latter pull things together and create something new. Stigma Awakened are like spiders, and Project Stigma wants to create a weave of webs so large that it can bind and absorb finality. Because both Herschers and Stigma Awakened were in the same place, the space was stabilized and trapped them inside. She also adds that because Herschers function similarly to planets that can cause a gravitational pull in space, when you distance yourself from them, time will move faster, and that's why they couldn't get into contact with them. Durandal and Li Sushang explain the situation to the rest and tell them that they figured out a way to return to Earth by walking through imaginary space. Because of how Project Stigma works, information from Earth is sent to the Moon, where it is processed and transferred back to Earth. Since they are Stigma Awakened, they can use Project Stigma to hitch a ride back to Earth's imaginary space. Dr. Schrödinger also finds some kind of wormhole near the wreckage of Finality that Kiana and the rest could use to return to Earth. While leaving, Dudu and Sushang meet I Lambda, who explains that because of Project Stigma, the time around Earth became non-linear, allowing pseudo-time crystals to form and giving her the ability to dream about every possible future of Project Stigma. Kiana, May and Bronya escape the imaginary space and descend into the crater. Hare appears before them and reveals that she is the crystallization of the Shariak Stigma and a new species of humans brought forth by Project Stigma called Forms. The humanoid creatures that attacked them in the imaginary space were seeds of ideas, artificial life forms temporarily staying in an incomplete state due to the project not being done. The purpose of World Serpent is to preserve civilization by sacrificing the current humanity. Since ideas are not tied to individuals, forms can inherit them and replace humans to carry on civilization past the point of the samsara cycle. The girls reject her views, so she gives up in trying to pursue them and removes all the restraints on their Herschel course, but the core of reason rejects Bronya for some reason. Yeah, I know, that was bad. The trio confronts Kevin about the truth behind Finality, and he tells them that Finality is an extraterrestrial civilization that seeks other civilizations to embrace them. It sends Herschers to force the revolution, but it fails every time, so the Hersher of Finality resets the cycle and it tries again. Kevin wants to test their resolve, so he fights them, but the Herschers are pushed back. Fuhua and Senti save them by using the Star of Eden to create a pseudo-black hole and trap Kevin inside. Before the rest can do anything, Hare puts them inside another dream. On the surface, Seele is worried, so she descends into the crater to look after the rest. She regains her connection with Dark Seele, who just returned after she was taken away by Hare. It is revealed that she is also a form born from Seele's stigma. Inside the pseudo-black hole, Fuhua is passed out. Kevin tells Senti that he still hopes that the people of the new era will find a better solution because he also believes that Project Stigma is the worst plan. Bronya wakes up in a space that looks like the crater of Finality. She sees the image of Wealth Joyce and follows it to different memory fragments belonging to the Hersher of Reason, while also reuniting with Kiana and May. Kiana believes that Anti-Entropy already has a plan on how to fight Finality and counter Project Stigma. She reveals that the battleship from Chapter 1 was sent by Anti-Entropy and the letter inside was written by Dr. Tesla. Whatever the plan was, Kiana thinks that it had something to do with Finality, but Tesla admitted that a lot of improvements were needed, so they postponed it. The girls find a memory belonging to Carl Gustav Jung that also includes Emma Planck. He was the first one of the 300,000 people absorbed by the Core of Reason during the first Honkai eruption. Because of Project Stigma, the Core of Reason has disintegrated on a physical level and all the 300,000 souls are scattered around. Unlike May and Kiana, Bronya is not a ascended Hersher. Since Joyce used the power of the 300,000 minds to take control of the core, it never had the chance to unlock its full potential. Prometheus approaches Bronya and tells her that Hare wants to get her hands on the power of the Herrscher of Reason. Prometheus argues that humanity's greatest strength is in narratives. Both Project Stigma and the Herrscher of Reason use human ideas and give them form. Because of that, the Herrscher of Reason's powers are the perfect way to fight Project Stigma. The only issue is that this also applies the other way around. For Project Stigma, which can collect the ideas of 7 billion people, 300,000 is not that much at all. Since Prometheus was designed to be an AI that can be attached to a Herrscher core and become a divine key, Void Archives, it offers to help Bronya change the composition of her core to force a simulated metamorphosis and free the 300,000 souls from Project Stigma's control. Bronya accepts, and Prometheus guides her to uncover the memories that Hare planted inside the core. They advance to a Siberian landscape full of remnants of destruction left behind by the second eruption. There, Bronya sees Hare in the middle of a battlefield full of wrecked mechs. The confused white-haired girl finds out that the mech unit was sent to retrieve the Abyss Flower, but something caused their demise. She stumbles upon the divine key, which is tainted by a familiar blood. Ado balanced the Shariak bloodline's opposing abilities of purifying and strengthening Honkai energy in Cecilia's body. Cecilia broke that balance when she used the Shariak holy blood to purify the Honkai corruption during the second eruption, so when Hare was born from her stigma, she was left only with the destructive Honkai abilities. After going through several memories, Bronya learns more about Hare's past and her suffering. In the end, she realizes that Hare planted too many ideas inside the core for her to be able to strip them one by one. Seeing that she cannot win, Bronya surrenders and gives Hare complete control over the core of reason. Back on the moon, Hare recalls a memory in which she found a dying woman that was pregnant. To save her, she awakened her stigma, and to her surprise the woman survived the process. The name of that woman was Alexandra Zaychik, Bronya's mother. She was also the person who gave Hare the name Mistalin Shariak. After a while, Mistalin tells her that the child will not survive because of her stigma. Hearing that, Alexandra is prepared to do anything for her child, even if she has to sacrifice her own life. After a long conversation, Mistalin chooses to respect her wish and puts Alexandra's stigma back to sleep. As the woman prepares to tell her something, an imaginary disturbance takes Mistalin away into the stigmata space because her form was still unstable at that time. Mistalin returns to reality 3 months later. After searching to no avail, she approaches Grey Serpent, willing to join his organization if he finds and checks on Alexandra for her. He agrees to help with the condition that Mistalin will do him a favor in the future. 1 year later, Grey Serpent and Mistalin stand in front of Alexandra's grave. As expected, she was not able to survive, but the child was born and well. Grey Serpent tells her that when Project Stigma is complete, she will be able to transcribe her own data, allowing her to be reborn as a new life form that will not be bound by her curse anymore. Since Bronya surrendered the core to Project Stigma, she can break through the memory space and return to the moon. Hare explains that her actions are born from jealousy towards Wealth Joyce, who has a similar existence to her, but received love and admiration while she was forced to live with a curse and suffer. She gives back the empty core to Bronya because the 300,000 minds already fused with Project Stigma. Since Bronya is also one of the 300,000 souls, she wakes up the core by herself and regains her powers. Kiana and Mei emerge from the memory space and see Fu Hua unconscious on the ground, while the pseudo-black hole created by the Star of Eden was already gone. Bronya fights Hare by herself and gets the edge, but Hare uses 300,000 false ideas to trick the limitations of the core, rendering Bronya powerless. Forced into a corner, Bronya is able to collect and transform the 300,000 souls from the core of reason to achieve metamorphosis and become the Herrscher of Truth. Bronya figured out that Hare was guiding her exactly to this result, and she reveals to them that she is no longer the original Mistalin Shariak that Bronya saw inside her memories. Fuhua wakes up while Senti guides Seele to the rest of the group. Kevin already left the moon to implement the next step of Project Stigma and told Senti about a Stargate that can take them back to Earth. The Stargate is damaged, but now that Bronya is the fully awakened Hersher of Reason, she can repair it. In the meantime, Hare reveals to Prometheus that she never wanted to take over the Hersher of Reason's powers, nor does she have any ill will towards Weltjoyce, since she is a new existence that only has the previous Hare's memories, but cannot empathize with her feelings. She only wanted to help Bronya as a final act of goodwill towards her old self and respect for Alexandra.